So thank you everyone for being here today. Karen Yarborough, actually do I have this right? The new president of the Democratic Party of Illinois?
Yes. You never know from day to day what's going to happen. So I was the current vice chair of the Democratic Party of Illinois, and our chairman stepped down and I stepped up. So happy to have the opportunity to lead the Democrats for a short period of time, because I actually will usher in the process that will yield our new base of the Democratic Party of Illinois. So we're going through that process right now, but I've got the steering wheel in my hand.
Well, congratulations, Karen.
Well, thank you. I think we're going to hear from Jamaica Davis on membership. We want to have her to share with our audience how they can go about joining the Maywood Proviso Rotary Club or a Rotary Club in their area. Jamaica?
Good afternoon, everyone. As membership chair, I welcome you all to our Black History lecture series. Rotary is an international service club. We raise money to distribute to local and international organizations. We are a global network of 1.2 million people and 35,000 clubs worldwide. Rotary is where neighbors, friends, and problem solvers share ideas, join leaders, and take action to create lasting change. We promote peace, fight disease, provide clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, save mothers and children, support education, and grow local economies. If you would like to join our club or any other club, I can definitely get you in contact with other clubs if that's what you would like. Please contact me at maywoodprovisorotary@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamaica. Karen, take it away.
Okay. Again, I mentioned that I was really excited about our lecture series for the entire month. It's been my pleasure to bring those forward during Black History Month. We started off with Dr. Lance Williams, the Assistant Director of the Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies. And then the next, in February 11th, we heard from State Senator Kimberly Lightford. Kimberly Lightford, of course, is the majority leader, and she discussed the 2021 groundbreaking legislation that the governor actually just signed into law. February 18th, we heard from Alexandra Sims, a political consultant and president of APS Public Affairs, and one of the co-founders of the Black Bench, a Chicago-based training program for future Black leaders. And today, it's my honor to introduce to some of you and present to others of you, Professor Stanford Lewis. He is the author of The Falsification and Fabrication of Ancient Egypt, 3400 BCE to 500 BCE. And this was a survey of literature which analyzes the arguments for a white origin of ancient Egypt and compares and contrasts them against the position of African-centered scholarship, which argues that the ancient Egyptians were Black, published by 4G Publishers in 2002. He has published articles in the West Journal of Black Studies, in Chicken Bones, a journal, and Femification. His work is cited in the book Pan-African Nationalism in the Americas, The Life and Times of John Henry Clark, published by Africa World Press. Currently, he is a professor of the Old Testament at the Tennessee School of Religion in Memphis, Tennessee. He is a graduate of Fisk University, Cornell University, and Harvard Divinity School. With that, I present to many of you and introduce to all of you Professor Stanford Lewis. Professor Lewis?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay.
So you should have your person to turn on your video so that we can hear from you.
Look, I don't know. Let's see.
That's not your strong suit.
No,
Technology.
this is not my long coat.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
see.
They had control of.
We thought you had control of the.
No. Armanda, we don't have control of the video. Is that correct?
Oh,
They got the video. They can do the video.
Let me see if I can unmute him.
Oh, there he is. There he
Okay.
oh,
is it on?
They got you.
no, you turned it off. Turn it on. There you are.
Okay, can you see me now?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, good evening to everyone. And we want to be sure to keep everything going smoothly. This is a new innovation. All of us are getting used to it. So I hope that you will forgive us for any technical difficulty that we might have. But part of what I've been asked to do today is to introduce you to the family of the late Fred Hampton. I lived in Maywood for several years, and I got a chance to know his mother, Iberia Hampton, and his father, Francis Hampton. These are what we say in the Christian church. They were the salt of the earth people. These people, they were not pretentious at all. You could get to know them, and they you. I am proud to say that I got to know them to the point where I could tell or call Mr. or Mrs. Hampton, and we greeted with each other by loving, saying we loved each other. They fought their whole lives for all of their children, but the murder, the political assassination of Fred affected their family, and it still affects their family. But they never forgot Fred. They never let his memory die. They set up organizations to keep his memory alive. Thanks to Karen Yarbrough and her husband, Henderson Yarbrough, we now have a street, Fred Hampton Way, and there was a sculpture by Preston Jackson that was done for Fred Hampton. And it came about because, as all things go, time passes. And many of the youth, including Mrs. Yarbrough's grandson or grandchildren, they didn't know who Fred Hampton was. And so their positions were, Mama, who is Fred Hampton? Now, mind you, they were attending and going to the pool that has been named for Fred Hampton, but they didn't know this person. So we knew then, as we know now, that there was a lot of work to be done. And so we had to get about getting a street, we had to get about getting an image, and we had to get about getting the information to people. This is in part our effort to keep the memory, the legacy of one Fred Hampton, two Mark Clark, who was also assassinated in the brutal murder when Fred Hampton was assassinated, and the Black Panther Party alive. We want you to know that there are members of his personal family, his son, their family. They're continuing to struggle in the tradition. I was asked, and because I knew Iberia Hampton, Fred Hampton's mother, when she died, I was asked to write a poem. I don't consider myself a poet, but I guess if you're writing poetry, you are a poet. And Karen asked me if I would pen something for her. And so I said yes. And she read the poem at the funeral. And this is the poem that she read. It's called Praise Song for Iberia Hampton for a Life Well Lived. Trampling, trying to make America our home. Remember the profound words of Ella Baker. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Francis and Iberia Hampton's story came to America's attention at 4 a.m. on December 4th, 1969, when their son, Fred, was brutally murdered at 2337 West Monroe Street in Chicago, while he lay in the comforts of his bed, a clandestine act of the government. We lost our political innocence, trampling, trying to make America our home. You stood against the forces of American justice for all when you and your husband brought suit against the extreme viciousness of a Chicago prosecutor who was willing to let stand the assassination of an American citizen. Although your husband was a quiet man, he was resolute and militant, and he supported your every effort. Trampling, trying to make America our home. You exposed a racist police system, and you never swerved from your truth. Your determination, despite difficulties, and your dedication spoke with a mighty tongue through your voice. The right to protest for rights and not be negatively stereotyped by the media and painted with the wide brush of hate mongering, when in fact the media protected the real hate mongers, the American government. Trampling, trying to make America our home. You dared to raise a family and sustain a marriage for over 60 years, bringing people together over massive fish fries and Southern cooking, collard greens, gumbo, fried chicken. Your indomitable spirit and energy fueled a generation toward movement. You opened our eyes to government corruption. You called America out and proved that America is not beyond political murder. Trampling, trying to make America our home. You withstood the government's attempt to discredit your just claims and label you foolish. The emperor has no clothes. You were not a failure who had a bone to pick with the government. You were a worker, a mother, a wife, a citizen. Trampling, trampling, trying to make America our home. You were not a traitor to democracy. You refused to be marginalized and tolerated to prove the equality of the system. No, it was your struggle, your fight that was patriotic. Trampling, trying to make America our home. From your horrific personal tragedy, you would become the magnificent woman who would give birth to our legitimate cause. The labor pains were long, excruciatingly painful, exhausting. But this child, our cause, and empowered people will live forever. Trampling, trying to make America our home. It is this point that led me to understand that we have to continue to forge the fight, and that our fight is not a fight of not doing, but doing continuously. As the late, great Frederick Douglass said, to agitate, and to continually be the conscience of America. Now, in talking about Fred Hampton, we must remember that he represented a new and burgeoning spirit in America. What is called the Zeitgeist by many scholars, which is a German word, which simply meant the spirit of the time. But against the spirit of the time, the old guard, the NAACP, the Corps, who had, by the way, done magnificent work. And we praise those men and women who still are doing magnificent work. But each generation produces young people, and they take us to the next level. The Black Panther Party was part of the movement in 1968 after the brutal murder of Dr. Martin Luther King. The Panthers Party blossomed. It was an explosion because they began to have organizations all over America and some internationally. And Fred would lead the way with his revolutionary thought. There are people who are still alive today who discount his contribution to us, not only in Maywood, but in the nation. He made a major contribution, and I want us to forever understand that. And there was a major sacrifice made with his life. I met his son only once, but in my meeting with his son, I said to him, your father was not blessed with longevity. You too are revolutionary. But I challenged him to live and grow old, raise his family, which his father did not get to do. We know that he is steeped within that tradition of revolutionary thought, but we want him and his family to live. The dedication and the sacrifice of one member of the family was enough, even though today they still work progressively, he and his mother, toward the fulfillment of the ultimate goal of our liberation. Then I would like to talk to you today about John Lewis as well. And I say this before the film is shown, that John Lewis came from the NAACP. Fred Hampton was a member of the NAACP. So when we look at the Black Power movement, we must not see these things as separate things, but as a growing and an expanding and taking the movement to the next level. This is what happened. And so I want to allow the movie rather, that has the miniature movie that has been made. I want you to see it because it is the second poem that I want to present to you, entitled The Prince of Peace. Prince of Love, excuse me. I keep thinking Jesus.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? Yes.
John Lewis was a disciple of both Dr. King's and Jesus Christ. Dr. King was called the King of Love by Nina Simone. John Lewis, being his disciple, we call the Prince of Love. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down, right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down, right, right. All the way to Montgomery town, right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down, right, right. And the rain came down, right, right. Lord, thought I woulda drowned, right, right. Through the rain, through the deep, right, right. Lord, I didn't get my sleep, right, right. That's why we moving in a creep, right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down, right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. John Lewis's name has become synonymous with the civil rights movement. Born the son of Alabama sharecroppers who earned a whopping sum of $1.40 for 400 pounds of cotton picked, neo-slavery. President Ulysses S. Grant in 1877 stated that labor disgraces no man. Lewis would vigorously disagree with this statement relative to sharecropping. I hated the work itself, but even more than that, from a very early age, I realized and resented what it represented: exploitation, hopelessness, a dead-end way of life. I hated picking cotton, literally back-breaking labor, planting, picking, chopping, fertilizing, row after row, often on your hands and knees from one end of the field to the other, sun up to sun down, year in and year out. The blazing Alabama sun beating down so hard you'd give anything you own for a little piece of shade and something cool to drink. This is the John Lewis who studied religion and philosophy at Fisk University in 1963 and participated in the desegregation of lunch counters in restaurants, sit-ins, took freedom rides, participated in the Mississippi Freedom Summer Project, and was savagely beaten during the Selma to Montgomery March. He drank deeply from the well of wisdom that was Ella Baker. She prophetically warned the students that this struggle to desegregate lunch counters and break down racially entrenched voting rights education was, quote, about more than a hamburger. She further cautioned, don't let anyone else, especially older folks, tell you what to do. Think and act for yourselves. Hold on to your energy and your vision. Keep it pure. Keep it real. This was a charge to SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right. Police brutality. Police on horses. Police in riot gear. Police with billy clubs. Police with tear gas. Police with high-pressured water hose with the ability to knock the bark off trees. Police with vicious dogs. Police, the enforcers of cruel and unjust laws. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right. Fannie Lou Hamer, horrifically beaten for wanting the right to vote and participating in the civil rights movement in Winona, Mississippi. Emmett Till, snatched from the comfort of his great-uncle Mose Wright's home and brutally beaten and murdered in Money, Mississippi. Cheney, Goodman, Swerner, tortured, murdered, and buried in an earthen dam in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Nina Simone cried, Mississippi, God damn. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Dr. King was John's and the civil rights protesters' hero. He was our true north, our midnight sun in America's nightmare of hate and debauchery. He affectionately called John the boy from Troy, Alabama, that is, and he taught him how to get into good trouble by going to jail for the right reasons, when going to jail for any reason was viewed as both bad and unchristian. Good people simply did not go to jail, period. King was getting into trouble and applying the Bible lessons to this world's problems. Unlike many preachers whose sermons were about pie in the sky when we die by and by, Dr. King was preaching about something sound down here on the ground while we are still around. The young John was hooked on this new Christian social gospel based in love and preached by Martin Luther King Jr. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. John understood better than most. The soul of the movement was embodied in sharecroppers like his mother and father, and thousands of people like Fannie Lou Hamer, who was sick and tired of being sick and tired. They sang without hymn books. Their music came from the heart. No piano, no organ, no musical instruments. Somebody would say, sing, Mahalia, sing, sing, Mahalia, sing. It was these unbreakable spirits and songs of the simple, everyday people, good, honest people that worked from can't see in the morning to can't see at night, whose lives never made headlines, but who made it possible for those who did. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Hurrah, hurrah. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. John believed in an America that has never been. Rather, he marched and protested for an America we hope to be. He vowed never to be happy as long as black mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. Although John served over 30 years in Congress, he had a heart of the Baptist preacher, and he never lost the passion for his Christian mission. Others may have labeled him politician or troublemaker. He saw his mission as divine. He believed in equality. Hate was not his way. He knew in America our only sin was in our weaponized skin, black skin, brown skin, rape-colored skin, light, bright, damn near white skin. How black I gotta be before you see massa don't make life no easier for me. Just how black I gotta be. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. He, like all protesters, lived with the threat of death every day for showing America a better way, the way of love. You, the government, allowed COINTELPRO to infiltrate, destabilize, discredit, and destroy black organizations. You, the government, allowed the Ku Klux Klan and the racist mob to set fire to the bus in Anderson, Alabama. You, the government, allowed racist white people to burn black churches. You, the government, allowed the beating and the torture of freedom riders. You, the government, knew who shot and killed Medgar Evers. You knew who bombed and murdered those 4 innocent little girls. You knew who killed Cheney, Goodman, and Swerner. You knew who killed Emmett Till. You, the federal government, were against nonviolent direct action. We, the peaceful protesters, were naive to think otherwise. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Hurrah, hurrah. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. We who believe need no lectures from former presidents to tell us there were 2 or 3 years where the movement went a little too far towards Stokely. We determine where we go and how far we will go. And Stokely's political positions were the consequences of a racist, nationalist oppression. How dare you tell us how to protest? This monumental white arrogance, cruelty, and racism is what fueled the public crucifixion of George Floyd. And Nina Simone sang, "Will the murders never cease? Are these men or are they beasts? Will the murders never cease? Are these men or are these beasts?" It has given birth to a new coalition of consciousness movement. John would say, if you see evil, say something. If you see wrong, do something. We who believe in democracy, we who believe in freedom, black, white, Native American, Indian, Spanish-speaking, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Samoan, and more, we are a kaleidoscope of humanity, and we demand justice and equality and peace for all Americans. What are we going to do now that the Prince of Love is dead? Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. All the way to Montgomery town. Right, right. And the rain came down. Right, right. Lord, thought I would have drowned. Right, right. Through the rain, through the deep. Right, right. Lord, I didn't get my sleep. Right, right. That's why we moving in a creep. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right. Pick 'em up and lay 'em down. Right, right.
When I was 10 years old, I tried.
I am the editor of Jewels magazine, and I compose what I consider that poem based upon my response to the publisher's requesting me that I write something on the Honorable John Lewis. And it can be independently located at www.Memphis Jewels on your YouTube channel. It is important now to open up and for us to have a conversation where you ask me questions and I do my best to give you my best answer, which might include, I don't know. So I will open up the to questions.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for, wow, I knew you were going to share some good stuff today, but this is a wonderful way for us to end Black History Month. Now, of course, I celebrate Black History 365 days a year due to I'm an African American, so I'm not limited to this month. But we do want to open up, and those of you who have questions, she's already shared that you should put your questions in the chat box. You should, or raise your hand if you have something you'd like to say or something you'd like Professor to react to. I think I'd like our president to start this off. Dr. Lipka?
Hello, Clerk Yarborough, thank you. One of the thoughts that came to mind for me was I saw a pop-up recently on the computer from, I think it was Morgan Freeman, that thought that there'd be better ways to celebrate Black history and the contribution of Black Americans than to relegate it to a single month. And I just wonder what your personal thoughts are about alternatives or additionally ways that we can celebrate and make this world a better place when we look at the Black American history.
First and foremost, from my perspective, it is important to remember that Black history is American history. Let's start there. Because in most colleges and universities, Black history is not required. It's an elective, which is problematic. When American history is required, it is subsumed. Black history is usually subsumed under American history, where we talk about George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and others, which is fine. But we also have to talk of the whole American history. So what we have been getting in the Western tradition is a Eurocentric history. There are more than white people in America. And each of us have a specific encounter in America. Now, a great many black people don't want to talk about being African. But from this scholar's perspective, we are African personalities having an American experience. All right? How do Africans in America perceive America? Because we are African personalities. And so we tend, all of the hyphenation, people want to say, well, we're just American. No, we all come from somewhere. Everybody seems to be able to celebrate where they come from. Ronald Reagan could go back to Ireland. People can go back to wherever they come from. But when we start talking about Africa, because we don't know the specific country, and that's because we were stolen, we discount, and I say we as African personalities, discount that we are African personalities. And this has to stop. Yes, we are American, wholeheartedly. We bled, sweat, died, and have given our lives, as our historians tell us, in every American war. But African history should be celebrated and elevated to, if American history is going to be taught properly, then you have to teach African history equally, not subsumed, as well as the other peoples of America, which is a lot of work, yes, but it must be done if it is to be done fairly.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
We're open for others that might have questions today.
Professor Lewis?
Yes.
Hi, this is Robin Staggers. How are you?
Fine, yourself?
I'm well. Can you tell us what COINTELPRO, can you explain that to us, and the government involvement?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
With delight, no problem. COINTELPRO was a program that was spearheaded by FBI chief head J. Edgar Hoover. I always get those Hoovers mixed up. I almost called him President Hoover. But J. Edgar Hoover, who used every mechanism, both legal and illegal, to discredit black organizations. They used the power and the wealth of the government to study black organizations and literally figure out where black organizations were weak, and they systematically set out to destroy SNCC. They set out to destroy SCLC, and the NAACP, and they targeted the leadership of those organizations for death, destruction, and otherwise quieting them. They used money, every conceivable way, to destroy the black movement. COINTELPRO was used. In fact, the COINTELPRO idea is still effective in people who have ideas. People will tell you,
I'm sorry, good afternoon. Hey, Roger.
that the Black Panther Party were racist, but they were not. They were pro all people. Fred Hampton would say black power to black people, brown power to brown people, white power to white people. It was not simply a black organization, and it could not have gained international acceptance. That's the civil rights movement could not have, nor could the offshoot of the Panthers and other organizations, had they simply been narrowly focused on what we might call truncated to black and black alone. No, it was about building coalitions. And this is what we believe today is going to be the ultimate liberation of our people is that we work with other peoples across the board, irrespective of their epidermal hue, their color. We don't care what a person's color is. No human being has anything to do with how they appear in the world. We want to look at what those people are about, the content, as Dr. King would say, the content of their character, the content of their philosophical thought. That's what we're concerned about. We certainly are not sitting around here saying, Zornell Hurston had a saying, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. In other words, because someone looks like you doesn't make them pro you. Conversely, just because someone has a different colored skin doesn't mean that they don't share sympathies with you or philosophy with you. And so we want to reach across the aisles. It's neither Democratic, Republican, black, white, Native American, technically colored. We don't care. If your philosophy is progressive, if your mindset is humane, then we're going to work with you. That's where we're coming from. And as a consequence, the Black Panthers got pigeonholed. They're only black. They're going to, it's called the politics of fear. They appeal to the idea that the black people are going to come in and they're going to invade. Tantamount to the idea that we saw promoted that there were certain people coming from certain countries to invade America today. Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, the browning of America, the fear of black and brown people. You need not fear black and brown people if you're being humane. It's only when you're being inhumane and unjust that the fear of others reign so supreme. So COINTELPRO was an organizational tool that the American government used to destroy, discredit black organizations.
Okay, thank you for that answer. We have another hand up. Talay Thompson is our district governor, assistant district governor. Talay?
Thank you so much, Clerk Yarbrough. Professor, thank you so much for this remarkable presentation. It just feels absolutely wonderful to be able to just sit here and listen to you, share with us and teach us our history. I have a question for you. Nicole Hanna's, I believe that's her name, the 1619 Project, which you put together along with the New York Times. In your humble opinion, do you believe that that body of work is an adequate body of work to put together to be able to teach our students in school the experience of the African here in America? Or are you of the belief, as many of the politicians in 3 states, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Iowa, that this particular body of work, the 1619 Project, not only is it inadequate to be taught in schools, but it's not the truth? I just wanted to know your take on that.
Thank you for the question. In fact, on the East Coast in Newark, my works, Christian Theology and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the falsification and fabrication have been placed on the reading list.
Awesome.
Of those high schools in Newark and New York, so that it will be added to the canon of American writers. It's important to understand that if America is to live up to its creed, if it's going to go from putting things, as Dr. King would phrase it, from thin paper to thick action, then they have to include the histories and the legacies of other people. The white, or what we would call the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male landowners who founded this country, have dispossessed the original peoples, the Native Americans. They're here in their own land. And the real possessors of the land ought to be them. You know, when we talk about immigration and you have Native Americans here and you got the people talking about immigration being immigrants from England and other European countries, that's problematic. And subsequently, I'm a firm believer that you have to see America as the multi-racial situation that it is. And you have to add the other voices, the other narratives, and those who do not wish those narratives to be added, they are the problem, not the solution. Now, we welcome them to come in and listen and share. We can learn from them. But certainly, they need to understand that the American project is not just a European or white project. It has to consist of the peoples who make up America. And until and unless that is done, then America will never be the place that it could be, because we are not tapping into the brain power of men and women. That is to say, if we only see the world as black, if we only see the world as white, if we only see the world as male, or only see the world as female, it is a conglomeration of these things that we have to learn to see. And there are those in powerful positions who don't want to see the world other than they see the world from a male, white, Western, or European perspective. Subsequently, those of us who say, if America is to be great as it can be, it must include in the canons all of her peoples, not just some of her peoples.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And we have a question from Karen Thompson. She's one of our members, one of our past presidents. Karen? So we unmute Karen so she can speak.
Okay, I will try.
Okay.
Quickly.
I do know what her question is. She wants to know about your book, The Falsification and Fabrication of Ancient Egypt. She'd like to, one, know where it can be purchased, and two, would you just discuss why you wrote this? I believe this was your thesis. I don't know where, but anyway.
Cornell.
At Cornell. This was your thesis. Could you just discuss for a moment what you're talking about in this falsification and fabrication of ancient Egypt and where we can get this publication?
Yes. You know, they're selling it as a classic now on the internet. And I wrote this work while I was at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. And the reason why I wrote it is because there are a lot of works. I wanted to go out and look to see what the information there was relative to whether these Egyptians that people were saying were white. The information is overwhelming that they were African, continental African. And when we say continental African, we mean black folk. We have to use so many adjectives to say an African. Because, you know, now today if you say, well, they will say South Africa, it's got white folk there. Well, sure. And lots of other places in Africa have white folk. But those white folks came from somewhere to be there. Okay? They weren't the original people there. And so when we began to look into the ancient history of Kemet, or Kemet is the formal name, but of Egypt, as we know, we find that the indigenous people were, as you would think they were, black people. And the problem that we have with that logic is because they're not black today, there are Arabs there who claim that they were the original people, but that would be just as bogus as white Americans claiming that they were the original Americans. The original Americans are peoples of color, Native Americans, and their cultures, okay? The people who now control America look very little like the people who initially controlled America. So things change over time. And so when I did the research, it's so overwhelmingly evident that these were Africans and that a culture theft, and when I say Africans, I now have to say black Africans, but that they were so indigenous to the country that if you had tried to express to an ancient Egyptian that the Egyptians were black, it would have been oxymoronic because they knew that they were black. The only people that didn't know that they were black would be people that had never been there. And so there was and is a cultural theft that continues as we speak. Because what happened in the 1800s, a very, what we call imperialistic time, when white people were beginning to control the world, they also had to begin to control the world's information. And they controlled it so that they realized that these pictures of black people and brown people, and when I went to Egypt and walked through the tombs, and you have millions of faces with thick lips and broad noses, classically African features that have been chiseled out. But there were so many of them, they couldn't chisel them all. So when you go there and see this in the pyramids themselves, you know that white people don't create images of black people all over their walls. Not today, not yesterday. Do you walk in a white home and find a bunch of pictures of black people? It's just ridiculous. But when we say this to them, they get angry because a cultural theft has occurred. And my scholarship, in fact, my thesis was held up for 3 years because I argued from the position that these were continental Africans. And ultimately, Dr. Bernal, who was the scholar who sat on my dissertation committee, had to go to the committee and ask the committee, why have you not given this man his degree? And he called me and told me, they told him, we don't like what he had to say. But ultimately, because I had bagged up the premise, my book, my thesis, the falsification and fabrication is now in the library at Cornell. They had taken George G.M. James's work out, A Stolen Legacy, but mine, and it was in a smaller library, but my work is now in the main library.
Wow, we could go on and on with you today in asking questions and certainly, just thinking about some of the things that we've heard over the years. I was in the legislature for a number of years, and we passed law after law after law to try to get Black history, which is American history, to be taught in the school systems. And many people they have no clue as to what happened here, with the exception of the books that have been written by others. And so I just applaud your efforts in pulling the cover off this business in Egypt. I know there was a focus on taking Egypt out of Africa, and I've read some of that, and it's just crazy, you know, when you start talking about Egypt, and people in their heads, they say, well, where is Egypt? Well, somewhere in the Middle East. Well, I don't know where the Middle West is, but nonetheless, it's just not, it's not, you know, it's not there. It's in Africa. And so it makes sense that, you know, people in Africa were black. So, Professor, we're not going to take any more of your time. We have to wrap up at 1:30. I'm going to turn this back over to our president, but thank you so very much for sharing this hour with us to eliminate two people I think that are way high up on the list of people that we need to know more about, and that's John Lewis and Fred Hampton. So with that, again, my thanks. You said that we can find your book on the falsification and fabrication of ancient Egypt. Would you put that up again so people can see that book? And where can we find that again?
It's Amazon.
Okay. So you can go to Amazon and get his work. This was his thesis when he was at Cornell, and now nothing like writing a book and they're using it in an institution. Again, my thanks, and I'm going to turn it over to our president, Lipka.
Well, what a privilege for you to be with us today.
Thank you.
I'm a bit at a loss for words. My wife in the background here, Bonnie, said amazing, simply amazing. I was crafting something not so genius as you, but I see this, your words stick, and the reason they stick is because of your sincerity, your honesty. There's a marriage between passion, your genius, and your experience, and a real heart for changing the world to make it a better place that make your words stick. And so that's a real blessing to each of us that have had the opportunity to meet you today. It's a first for me and perhaps everyone in our audience. You have a great contribution to make to the world. And I've got so many questions come to mind. And you know, the mark of a great speaker is their ability to stimulate so many questions in their audience and to make them think more broadly even than the specific message, because the message has such broad implications. But anyway, I'm just grateful. And I thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us and the 60 plus people that we believe are on here to listen to you today. And you make not only our world a better place, this club, and our ability to serve the world better. So thank you for being who you are and bringing us your message today. Really,
and thank you for having me.
Everyone else, blessings on your day. And I ask our club members to contemplate the words spoken today by Professor Lewis and others in the weeks that preceded, so that they might color our future and the way in which we can be more beneficial to the world around us. Thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day.